It's a real honor to be here. Thank you so much for joining us, and just to see so many friends and some new friends and colleagues is really wonderful. Art is doing a daily podcast on the transits, or a webinar on the transits, which is called Art?
World Transits Today.
Yeah, so check that out.
It's at Reference Astrology. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And James is doing a lot of interesting stuff too. You can keep in touch with a lot of interesting astrological happenings on the Facebook group Archetypal Astrology and Transpersonal Psychology. Norma is an astrologer as well, so if you want a reading in Spanish, she's your woman. I'm sure her English is great too. I want to thank everybody who helped me. I don't have time to go through the list, but it's here in my acknowledgements. And you know, some of the people that have joined us today read more than, you know, like I know that Karen read at least 100 pages of the book, and it was invaluable feedback. And Art gave me great feedback. James gave me good feedback. There were other people, Gita and other, Tatiana, and anyone else. I can't see your names. Thank you so much. There were a number of versions of this cover because Amazon hasn't been shipping to Canada for a while. There was about 2 months where they weren't. I had to have copies shipped to friends in the States, and then they would mail them to me. And I wanted it as fast as possible to look at the changes in the covers. So I was spending over $150 per one book. All times I did that. So here are the series of versions, but one of them is still with Amber. We just did a Zoom call. So one day I'll show these, you know, to friends. It's kind of a funny sequence of evolution. Okay, I guess, anyways, thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. Good to see everybody. So I'm now going to go up to participants. Before I do, I want to give a special thanks to Dulcie and Tatiana for organizing the Astrology Victoria events and inviting me to talk. I really appreciate all the work you've done and the promotion. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. And there's someone here you can see in the screen, Carmen, my partner, Carmen Zeri.
Hi,
Carmen.
She gave me a lot of feedback on the book, a lot of questions that I had as I went, questions about the cartoons and the art, and especially the design of the book's front and back covers. She was instrumental in a couple decisions that I made with the covers. I'll just about to show it to you. And she also made the process a lot more fun and meaningful and rewarding. So thank you very much.
Oh.
Yay.
It's a kind of a weird life as a writer. You spend a lot of hours alone, you know, in your own vibe. And so I also thank Carmen for her patience. And this book was about a 4,000 hour project. I did about 1,000 hours in the years 2001 to 2003. And then it sat on my shelf for about 15 years or something like that. 15 years. I resumed it in 2018, and I did another 3,000 hours approximately for the last 2 years. So my normal rate of working was about 100 hours a month, and for the last 6 months, it's been about 200 hours a month. So that's been a fairly intense focus. Not when you consider the total number of hours in a month, but I always, I remember Rick Tarnas telling me when he was working on Cosmos and Psyche, he was working like 18 hours a day. So I never felt the urge to do that, but just press a bunch of buttons, hope one works. Can you see that? Can you see my screen? December 2021. That's the last day that they're within 15 degrees. We use a 15-degree orb on world transit conjunctions and oppositions. So you won't expect it to suddenly you know, be happening intensely on December 17th and then end on the 18th. But I just pulled up that date. So till December, we're in Saturn, Pluto. Hard labor in the psyche. The great mother goddess bearing down like a hard birth contraction on the world psyche. You know, introspect, stay home, look at yourself, burn less carbon, find meaningful work, connect with each other, and stop running around doing a lot of unnecessary shopping and diversions. You know, these are some of the ways that people, observers, might see this manifestation of this Saturn Pluto birth contraction happening right now. So I'm very proud to show you the cover of my book. And again, thank you to the people who helped me. Norma, it's really nice to be able to see you right there, and Karen in my screen. Thank you so much for your help. So this is the cover I arrived at. The Amazon printers don't translate exactly, but you know, it probably won't look quite that bright, but that's what I came up with. And Carmel was a big help. Here's the back cover. Got some, you know, some of the many endorsements that I have, I put on the back. I really like Rebecca Farrar is a colleague in San Francisco. Wild Witch of the West is her moniker, and I was just really proud to put that on there. And my good friend Amber Balk, who the only one to read the entire book, and Becca Tarnas, Lawrence Hillman, Stan Groff, and Patricia Walsh are some of the endorsements. So I thought I'd start with some fun comedy. This is in my Untitled Chapter, and we are in a semi-square right now. And you can see her head, right? I've got my little control tower. Nothing's moving at the top right now, right? Okay, so only I can see that. Okay, so thank you to Samantha Mirando for drawing many of these interesting cartoons. Welcome to the 3032nd Intergalactic Federation of Astrologers Convention. We have a wonderful lineup of presenters for you, beginning with Darman Fogley, who will speak on the pervading bias of Milky Way-centric chart analysis. Let's see here. Galena Morfling will talk about her new book, Thousands and Thousands More Comets, When is Enough Enough? Gordap Zinglu will offer his take on problems of locational timing during transwarp speed births. And Dublek Gablo will present her feelings on Perron holophasic transdimensional chart modeling. What could all this possibly mean? The far-reaching journeys and explorations of Uranus and Neptune. So I just want to turn this time here so I can keep track of it. I'm so glad to have this time. So I thought you'd be interested in checking out the contents. I go through the sun, moon, and planets, and the ascendant, and also this beyond gendered Greco-Roman planetary names. And I'm going to read you part of that section. And in part two, I introduce Groff's expanded cartography of the human unconscious and Rick Tarnas' correlations with it. And then a section comparing the perinatal matrices that Groff discovered with the hero or heroine journey of Joseph Campbell. And then Groff found that our memories in our psyche are not just, they don't just emerge in deep self-exploration in a random haphazard way, but they seem to emerge in clusters of memories that have the same thematic component, either the same emotion or the same sensation. So we could relive a series of personal failures, let's say. And some of them would be from our lifetime, and then they might go back to the feeling of loss of the womb as the uterine walls contract around the fetus, the sense of having lost something precious. And then it could have some even deeper transpersonal components, like something from past life, for example. There are also positive memory systems, and Groff calls these coexes, systems of condensed experience. And I introduce a new term, relationship coexes. and I'll leave it for you to read the book. I'm just going to turn on my new salt lamp here. I can't see myself. That probably doesn't change my light whatsoever, but just bought it on Used Victoria. And then I introduce the basic principles of archetypal astrology, and then I go through the planetary pairs one by one, starting from Sun, Moon, and then right out to Neptune, Pluto. Oh, and then also Pluto ascendant, rather. So here's a little bit from the preface. Every human being feels deep longings for love and connection. Some of these needs can be met through the warm and loving relationships with our partners, friends, and family. Yet we are also told by the mystics that our most profound yearnings are to reconnect with the source of life itself, the cosmic creative principle. This book explores the interplay of these two essential drives within us, the social and the spiritual, our relationships with other people, and our relationship with the universal field of consciousness. And basically, I hope this book will be a supportive guide in both your healing and loving quests. I chose the name O Goddess for several reasons. On a personal level, it is a grateful honoring of my own experiences of the divine feminine, which unfolded in a series of deep self-exploration sessions I undertook during the years 1991 to 2020. I don't want to just come out and tell you what kind of sessions they were, but I think you probably know. These were very powerful sessions, which I had people supporting me to face the material. And these were some of the most exquisite experiences of my lifetime. These included profoundly emotional encounters with the goddesses Ishtar. This is in the order that they came to me, starting in 1991. Ishtar, Persephone, the Crone, Kali, Mary, Isis, Pele, and Parvati. And Parvati was just 2 summers ago. These blessed experiences helped to change the course of my life. And I also talk about the return of the feminine is one of the most urgently needed evolutions in our continued survival as a species. I decided to use non-binary pronouns in this book. I had some resistance at the beginning. As an English major and a writer, I couldn't see that in the sentence and accept it. But 3 of the people who gave me feedback, assured me that it was very important to do it. One of them was Eve, my friend from Victoria, and another astrologer, and then Lily Falconer, our astrology colleague in San Francisco. My own experiences have convinced me that the return of the feminine is beneficial for everyone and does not reduce the value of the masculine, but rather reveals the archetypal feminine and masculine principles as being equal partners within a universal field of consciousness which transcends all gender and duality. Every person contains, of course, a blend of both feminine and masculine qualities, and the yin and yang principles are spread through every molecule of creation. Okay, so far? Okay, so this is just a random but beautiful painting from the Moon Mars section by British artist Josephine Wall. I've had one of hers on my wall, a poster, for 20 years, and I didn't even know who painted it, and I discovered her while looking for more goddesses to put in my book. Diana is the ancient lady of the beasts, and as the mistress of wild things, she is responsible for anything young and vulnerable. She is also the goddess of the moon, as symbolized by the crescent moon diadem she wears in her hair. Her role is to represent the mystic primitive identity of the hunter and the hunted. She is often called upon to protect and help women during childbirth, and is the midwife and protector of the divine child within. Really an exquisite painting, and I'm very grateful to the artists who contributed to this book. They've added so much. I'm holding Carmen's hand, so. So this is my title quote from Stan Groff, talking about the approach of Oceanic Sex, something that he introduced in, I think, Beyond the Brain. The aim is to experience the loss of one's boundaries, a sense of fusion and melting with the partner into a state of blissful unity. The genital union and orgasmic discharge, although powerfully experienced, are here considered secondary to the ultimate goal, which is reaching a transcendental state of union with the male and female principles. And this would be the same in same-sex couples. It's the male and female within both people. Some of the subjects who have reached this form of sexuality, when asked what function the genital orgasm has in it, would respond that it serves the purpose of removing biological noise from a spiritual system. So this is the overall philosophy of sexuality that permeates this book. And what this is that the idea that, you know, there are many enjoyable parts of sexuality when it's a, you know, positive experience, but the part that really satisfies us the most, that gives us a lasting sense of peace and unity and satisfaction, is the bonding with the lover afterwards. It's the lying together for a long period and you know, holding hands or full body contact. And it's not the intensity of sexuality or even how exciting it is that satisfies us on a deepest level. It's how good we feel afterwards, how peaceful, calm, and satisfied. And so the question then is, what is keeping us feeling that satisfaction? Maybe we don't have a partner. Then what are the wounds preventing us from having a partner? What are the unmet needs? We might have our needs from unmet needs in infancy or childhood could be so great that we, in a way, feel too needy to even be in a relationship. Those kind of wounds can be healed in holotropic breathwork or psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy as we regress to that earlier state of vulnerability and then receive what we didn't get at the time. There could also be aggressive energies, or you know, if there was sexual abuse in our life, there could be complex themes mixed in with our sexual arousal when it happens. And Groff was able to prove that there's a finite amount of those traumatic foreign energies in the individual psyche, and we can systematically unpack and resolve them and clear them out, and then reach these more Neptunian states around our sexuality. So I won't read all of this, but Becca Tarnas, first Lisa Liam Bruni, another brilliant colleague, helped me with this section and suggested some sentences that were very helpful, and moved the order of things. And then I sent that version to Becca Tarnas, and she suggested I move this from the end of the book to the very beginning. So thank you to both of them very much. I'm very proud of this part of the book and very grateful for their help. So the rebirth of the feminine in human society is one of the great overarching processes of our time. In the field of astrology, an important development in this ecstatic reawakening is the discovery of millions of new asteroids, some of which have been correlated with goddesses of Greek mythology. And their inclusion in the traditionally masculine astrological pantheon reflects a dramatic shift in how modern astrologers are making space for and reintegrating these empowering feminine archetypes. So this is a profoundly positive direction and an important way of reintegrating the feminine, but yet there are other developments in astrology which also reflect this dramatic feminine rebirth and reawakening without necessarily bringing in new celestial bodies, such as asteroids. The central issue is that the feminine principle, in the abundance of her many rich variations and phases, needs to be seated equally at the highest head table of the gods and goddesses. Astronomically, the asteroids are a secondary category of celestial body in relation to the planets. It follows that settling for a correlation of feminine archetypes with asteroids represents, in some ways, a marginalization of the female principle. Furthermore, since asteroids are relatively newly discovered celestial bodies, it is possible that some of them may have been given inaccurate names and thus characterizations. You know, a new asteroid is discovered, somebody gives it a name, and this person is probably not, you know, in the shamanic tradition or the archaic primitive mind of our ancestors that was sort of in touch with the archetypal dimension, this participation mystique that our ancestors enjoyed. It was just somebody who, for various reasons, chose a different, you know, a goddess from Greek mythology. And then from then on, we just assume that all the meanings associated with that goddess will be connected with that asteroid. So that could be true, but there are precedents for suggesting that heavenly bodies can be misnamed. So it may take some time for us to confirm, or in some cases to modify, the asteroid mythology correlations, is what I'm saying here. Planets can be misnamed. That one's hidden for me. The astrological qualities related to Neptune, peaceful, mystical, spiritual, idealistic, and imaginative, bear little resemblance to the vengeful storm god Poseidon Neptune in Greco-Roman mythology. I heard Rick Tarnas and Rob Hand talk about this in a car ride I got to enjoy with them. Rob Hand was doing a weekend workshop at Esalen, and we drove into Nepenthe for Mexican food, and they were talking about this, and I was very impressed, because most astrologers just kind of follow along, you know, with the tradition, right? So they, you know, questioning it from a more nuanced way. Tarnas recognized that the archetypal meanings related to Uranus, urges toward freedom, individuation, breakthroughs, rebellion, and change, do not match the Greek sky god Uranos, who is essentially a static patriarchal figure who sought to prevent change. He's essentially a Saturnian figure. And we know that Uranus is not is more about revolution, breakthroughs, defiance, rebellion. He suggests that a closer corollary is the Greek titan Prometheus. And in Planets in Transit, Rob Hand writes that a more accurate corollary with the planet Pluto is the Hindu god Shiva. And I want to also suggest Kali. So we could look at a hyphenated name in the future, Kali Shiva or Shiva Kali. So if these major planets were misnamed, then it is conceivable that some of the asteroids familiar to us might also be inaccurately characterized. So it may take some time for us to, you know, by the worldwide community of astrologers to fully confirm, or as I mentioned, and possibly in some cases to modify these correlations. So we can, rather than waiting for that process, also begin to reintegrate the feminine at this highest head table of the goddesses and gods, the planets themselves, sun, moon, and planets. Every planetary archetype embodies both feminine and masculine qualities. They are not inherently gendered and have a capacity to move between gendered manifestations. That's actually close to a phrase that James Moran shared with me in one of his feedback rounds. So thank you, James. And I list some examples of it. The real deeper problem is that so many of our planets were given masculine names, reflecting the masculine bias of Greco-Roman and Western culture. Rather than that, they are essentially masculine in nature. My feet are just getting a little cold. I suggest below some additional mythological and spiritual corollaries of the planets in order to stimulate further thought. I don't expect the planets' names will be changed, but I do believe that what I'm about to show you could be kind of standard food for thought for beginning new students of astrology. So, you know, I've been thinking about this for 15 or 20 years. And it wasn't until I was writing this book that I, you know, had to fill in a few of the gaps and, you know, flesh out this, model, this table. So, Apollo Atman, or Apollo Amaterasu, was a Japanese solar goddess. The moon, Demeter, Isis is one possibility. Both mother goddesses, very famous mother goddesses, worshipped for thousands and thousands of years. Or Parvati, Nannar. Nannar was, I think, a Babylonian male lunar deity. Mercury, Metis. Metis was the Greek goddess of measurement. Venus, we know her female qualities from Aphrodite, but Adonis is a masculine example. He was the most beautiful or handsome man. Or Venus, Narcissus. He stared at his own reflection in the water and it didn't have a very positive outcome. He was punished by one of the goddesses. So that'd be the shadow side of Venus. Mars, Athena. Athena is a wonderful martial example of the Mars energy in female form. She was the Athenian goddess of war, also wisdom. So it's more like Mars inflected by Jupiter. Mars, Jupiter is a closer fit to Athena, but I really like her for here. Jupiter, Lakshmi, a beautiful Vedic goddess from India, abundance, prosperity, bounty. She is a goddess that appears in psychedelic therapy sessions as people have rebirth experiences. Lakshmi can appear. Also Parvati, Mary, Isis, Demeter are the most common ones. So Lakshmi, Jupiter. Saturn, Maya. Saturn, the myth of Saturn is a pretty close fit. Maya is the Hindu concept of the illusion of the material world, that we're somehow, this is a virtual reality created by the cosmic creative principle. And so it's so convincing that we see it as totally real. And that's the Saturnian part of Maya, that the small R reality world. Or Saturn, Moirai. Moirai were the three female fates in Greek mythology. And over again in Greek mythology, it is stated that they were more powerful even than Zeus. They were considered the supreme powers in the universe, in the cosmos, and they were feminine. And I forget their names, but I think it's Alexis, Clotho, and Atropos, something like that. And Clotho spun the fabric of the lifetime of each being, and that is the Greek root of our word, cloth. Then Uranus, Persephone, the goddess of rebirth. She also appears in sessions of when people are accessing the coming out of the birth canal, spiritual rebirth. Persephone is a very common goddess. And Prometheus is Rick Torn's suggestion for Uranus, but clearly both of these are good fits. Neptune, Samadhi, Muses. Muses, the Greek, the god, I think they were gods and goddesses, I'm not sure. Maybe they were all goddesses of inspiration. So this is clearly a Neptunian function. Samadhi was the term in Indian philosophy for transcendence of the Maya, of seeing beyond it and reaching states of unity. Or Brahman, that's not a masculine term. Brahma was a masculine god. Brahman means the universal soul, or Tao, the conscious animating force within all things that is undivided, from Chinese philosophy, Taoism. And then Pluto, Kali, Shiva. And I talk a little bit more here about various facets of the archetypal feminine may be represented on a number of astrological levels at the same time. For example, the mythological Hera, Roman Juno, who embodies relationship structure and commitment, justice, equality, equality, patience, jealousy, and insecurity seems to correspond to alignments of Moon Saturn, as well as to the asteroid Juno and the zodiac signs Capricorn, Cancer, and Libra in various ways. So here we have a mythological archetypal meaning, Hera Juno, which seems to correspond to a certain planetary pair, Moon Saturn, to a certain asteroid, Juno, and also to zodiac signs. So these meanings are permeated through different layers of astrology, which enables a rich syncretism and pluralism in the study of the heavens. So just a random little bit of humor here. The new age finally comes to Antarctica. Thanks, everyone. You may now put your ice crystals and feathers on the snow altar. Oops. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with the Groff-Tarnas perinatal sequence, this will be a very brief introduction to it. Groff found that when people's deep self-exploration and psychedelic therapy reached even deeper than the personal biographical layer of their psyche, memories from infancy to the present, it reached into memories of the birth process. The different 4 major stages in this process. Before it begins, the intrauterine, the no exit contraction stage, the cervix now open, the dynamic propulsion down the birth canal stage, and then the crowning and completed delivery. He calls these basic perinatal matrices, BPMs. And Rick Tarnas, his close friend and colleague who was living at Esalen Institute, where Groff was living in the 70s, was able to see that the basic thematic flavors associated with these memory systems that Groff discovered are closely correlated with the meanings of the outer 4 planetary archetypes known from the astrological literature. And it was a remarkable discovery. And this has, I believe, added some elements to astrology that have not been completely integrated across the board, but deepened it, fleshed it out in some ways, tied in planetary archetypes with human psychology in some very profound ways that can help to make our astrological practice more deeper and more helpful to our clients. And so I'll be presenting just a taste of some of this today. So Groff found that when people are reliving one of these stages of the birth process, it's not just an obstetric experience, even though there can be verifiable obstetric details that can later be verified by an independent observer. An even more important component of these BPMs are archetypal qualities that share the same thematic flavor. So when people are reliving a good womb experience, it can be overlayered with sequences of heaven or paradise, union with Great Mother Goddess or with God. There's no boundaries to Neptunian quality in that. I won't go through these now, but as we go through the sections, I will. And these perinatal experiences surrounding the birth, perinatal, always have an obstetric component, but they also open out into racial and collective memories that have the same emotional character as that stage of the birth, past lives, to different archetypes and mythological sequences, archetypal terrain, such as heavens associated with BPM 1 or hells associated with BPM 2, and so forth. So every time I move this thing, then I have to click to get back. Okay. I'm very proud of this. Eva Ursini, one of the artists who contributed to this book and drew many of the really great drawings that you'll be seeing today. And she's in training to be a holotropic breathwork facilitator. I think she's originally from Slovenia, but now living in Switzerland. So this brings in the mother. Groff, he's emphasizing here separation from the mother. So this is the umbilical cord has been cut. And at this point, we become an anatomically distinct organism, biologically autonomous in that sense. And that's very much connected with Uranus, right? The desire to individuate, to separate ourselves out from the kind of mother society and to become our own person. I would tie in there. But, an even deeper part of it, which is in a way the Neptunian side of BPM4, is we are moving into a space which is filled with love and reconnection with the mother and the great mother goddess. And so, thank you, Eva. Some of Groff's great paintings, the Oceanic Womb, this is from one of his own psychedelic sessions from BPM1. And here's another one. Both the consciousness of the ocean and interstellar space have no boundaries in it. It's like free-flowing lack of boundaries, and that shares with the womb the sense of no boundaries. The fetal consciousness is still all over the place. It is still connected with other times and places, and with the gods, with the goddesses, with the divine. However, there can be toxic womb memories. In various medical or psychological conditions, the mother is unhappy or not being supported, and people would have to relive some of these in their healing journeys. Experiences of this kind are among important sources of paranoia. We'll take a break in about 10 minutes. So people influenced by Neptune, and again, thanks to Rick Tarnas for making these correlations. Influenced by Neptune and the security, serenity, and satisfaction of positive BPM1 memories will also have access to those feelings in their sexuality. They are more likely to approach lovemaking in a mystical, spiritual, or oceanic way, enjoying a serene and relaxed approach to their sexuality. Rather than an urgent struggle to prove themselves or accomplish something, or a sense of struggle or danger or something like that, they may experience sex as being more like a mutually meaningful and nourishing play of energies resembling a dance. That's a quote from Groff. Although the orgasm is experienced on a powerful level, the most important element of sexuality for them will be the loving and blissful merging before and especially after orgasm. And they're able to reach a state of relaxed satisfaction. So the blissful union between mother and fetus then becomes a prototype for peaceful and nourishing relationships in everyday life. You are at one with another being that loves you. There's a free flow of blood and energy and chemicals and thoughts between you in a good womb situation. And this is a very strong basis for happiness and well-being for a person's entire lifetime. Toxic womb memories, when unhealed, can be an important source of hypochondria and psychotic distortions of reality in later adulthood, and in milder forms of chronic fears of rejection and an inability to form meaningful or trusting relationships. But these can be healed. This is software in the brain. It's not hardware. These are patterns in the psyche that can be melted by experiencing them fully. Now, this is a beautiful painting by Becca Tarnas, Breathing Time. Her transit was Neptune square her natal sun and Uranus trine her natal sun. And her caption was, during a meditation on reincarnation, breathing in and breathing out the centuries, I saw lifetime after lifetime revealed to me in different forms. I was all of them at once, and they were all me, and yet beyond me as an individual. This meditation is a reminder that our soul is more than our individuality, more than can be captured within any single lifetime. And this is this is a Sun Neptune. You know, this I looked up her transits and mentioned the transit to her, and she agreed this was the appropriate archetypal correlation, because the Sun is connected with our individual selfhood, you know, the core of our being, our identity, the I am within us, that is represented by the Sun. But the mystics tell us our true identity is not the individual, but the totality. The universal soul is our true identity, and that is represented by Neptune. So with Sun Neptune transits, we have an opportunity to experience a deeper level of our true selfhood. And so that was a beautiful depiction of that. And here's an example of comedy. I'm sorry, Babawan, but you may never call any of these ladies again. And I will be keeping your little black book for safekeeping. Yes, O wise Sri Mufti. The deference to idealized father figures of Sun Neptune. Thank you, Eva Ursini. And I am a transplendently awakened being of divine light. That is so impressive, Doug. Now, would you mind touching me? The esoteric nature of Sun Neptune. Art by Samantha Miranda. So here's I'll just read a little section from Mercury Neptune. You have the mind of a mystic loving dreamer, and who would not enjoy basking in your enchanting poetic reflections? Playful soul and imagination enhance the mood in the bedroom so much more than sober facts and details. So in lovemaking, you are truly in your element. With a soft and gentle way of speaking, you caress your lover with sweet whispering nothings and the musings of your soul. We are two fish floating serenely over an azure tropical coral reef. Of course, you may want to warm your partner up slowly to your inspired lyric style, or you may end up chasing them half dressed down the sidewalk. Okay, we're not jellyfish, just me. Try to decide whether the two of you are taking the red pill or the blue pill tonight. And then, oops. The emphasis in holotropic states, holotropic breathwork or psychedelic states, is on transcendence of the illusion of the separate mind, opening to higher meaning and serene mental ecstasy. In your religious life, you may be drawn to sacred chants, mantras, or mystic syllables such as Om or Aum. Remember the admonishment, those who speak do not know, and those who know do not speak. Although quiet people often don't know much either, and there have been some very chatty gurus. Mercury Neptune represents the ineffable, the peace of God which passeth all understanding. And you can only get there by making love. You cannot F the ineffable. People who went to church will know what I'm talking about there. This is another example of Mercury Neptune, a wonderful creation by Tatiana Hassan, one of the hosts of this event, and Astrology Victoria. She gave it a brilliant talk. I was really impressed with it about 5 months ago, at the meeting place in Victoria when we were still meeting. And she made this, I believe, the day of her talk, or maybe it was the day of her talk. And she has a natal Mercury Neptune square, and it was being lit up by Neptune. So you see the sense of higher meaning, higher influences, the boundaries of the mind are being completely opened up by Neptune. Real honor to have that in here. Thank you very much, Tatiana. And then Psyche's Dream, again by English painter and sculptor Josephine Wall. As Psyche sleeps among the flowers, she dreams of beholding the perfect face of Eros, her lover. Having found true love in each other, they float down the river of life forever. That is a gorgeous painting. Okay, here we go. So this is Venus Neptune. You can hear me? Good. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm seeing different folks. It's like I can see Karen, Tatiana, Chantel, and Norma. So please give me a thumbs up if it seems tolerable what you're hearing. I just want to make sure that I'm recording. Yes, we are recording. Okay. Okay. These heavenly pairings blend the amorous and friendly nature of Venus with the kind heart and mystical yearnings of Neptune. You are a sweet and sensitive soul whose deepest desire is to love and be loved. A child of higher spirit on earth, you are a beautiful and entrancing mystery, the innocent, winsome smile on the soul's Mona Lisa. You feel a natural openness and trust in the safety of the universe, and your tender compassion will help people to feel at ease and comfortable around you. Drawn by oceanic flowing forms of beauty, you may also enjoy moments of rapture or epiphany in the presence of gorgeous music, refined art, or sublime nature. Your own beauty glows and attracts like an ethereal heroine filmed in soft focus. During transits of Venus-Neptune, you may feel a sweet appreciation for moonlight walks along a sandy shore, enchanting dinners to candlelight, or romantic vacations in exotic locales. Sensual and dreamy in the bedroom, you are likely to find foreplay and cuddling to be unusually intoxicating and satisfying. In intimate relations, you have a capacity to abandon yourself and surrender into a blissful melting of boundaries, what Groff calls the melted or oceanic type of ecstasy, as you access and embrace divine love through your partner. Here, the biological elements of lovemaking are secondary to the spiritual. Sex is an avenue for merging your souls. Floating in an ocean of sacred euphoria, you join with the archetype of the beloved itself. Sweet New Age classical or world music will help to enhance these most tender of feelings within you. I'm just so glad I'm not finding typos. So this is another, Eva drew this. I want Venus in BPM1. This is a way to sort of link Groff's work with Tarnas correlation. So Venus Neptune would have some connection with Venus in the good womb, like Aphrodite in the good womb. Your oceanic being has quenched my lovesickness at last, mine too. My heart is enraptured in loving devotion, blissful communion, this sweet romantic dream, every yearning utterly fulfilled. We get on so well, don't we? Tender adoration, O higher beloved, the divine romance of humanity. So yummy. Beautiful heaven, this is the sweetest moment of my life, and it will last for an eternity, darling, for an eternity. Like a fetus united in sweet bliss with its mother in utero, Venus Neptune graces the psyche with a higher divine love. Art by Eva Ursini. And then she did this one as well, the amniotic Mars. Like existence in a cosmic womb, Neptune helps to soften, spiritualize, and hydrate Mars' dynamic energies, leading to a more relaxed, altruistic, and flowing approach to life. Mars can also encourage us to pursue, in more active and dynamic ways, Neptune's unitive states of being, like by going after those experiences, by doing sessions, by doing the work to open the psyche to these unitive states. The shadow side of Jupiter-Neptune emerges when your natural impulses toward abundance and satisfaction are pursued in too literal or excessive ways, as in mirages of limitless prosperity, rose-colored over-optimism, or gaudy religious materialism. This is just the shadow side of Jupiter-Neptune. I cut out the rest of it. So the title, there was lots in between the title and this, but I just wanted to read you this. So after completing the introductory weekend course, the week-long retreat, and 2 follow-up seminars, you become a level 1 cadet. Then 3 more seminars and you get to level 2, and so on. until eventually, if you give everything you have and are truly worthy, you will reach level 10, followed by a special enlightenment ceremony with the president, where you get a lapel and cufflinks signed by His Loftiness, the founder. Oh, wow, sign me up. That's Venus, Neptune, or Jupiter, Neptune. So we're back to this Graf-Tarnas sequence here. We'll look at Saturn now, BPM2. So Saturn, the archetypes are bigger than the perinatal matrices, but these perinatal matrices are a very important place where these planetary archetypes manifest, become embodied, become enacted in time and space. They're a very concentrated and pure experience of those planetary archetypes. So Saturn, the essence of it is based on the cervix is still closed, the uterine walls are contracting, the water has broken, there's feelings of shortness of breath because the oxygen supply through the umbilical cord could be diminished or cut. There's no way out in this stage, and it's connected with feelings of entrapment, hellish sense of loss, guilt, failure, and so on in its purest form. Now, Saturn, again, has many positive sides, but BPM2 is essentially an unequivocally negative experience, a very important basis for depression in later life till it's cleared out of the psyche. So people influenced by this matrix often feel a marked decrease in their sex drive. They might experience lovemaking as being painful or oppressive, possibly the last thing in the world they might be interested in doing. BPM2 is related to unpleasant tension, frustration, or pain in all the erogenous zones. So nothing is flowing, nothing feels satisfying. So it could be connected with constipation, no sex drive, or a sense of it being a dangerous or painful thing. Even at best, under a strong Saturn transit, sex may feel somewhat more routine, mechanical, or brief. But if BPM2 memories are close to the surface, then it will be even more extreme than that. So here's an example for Moon Saturn. Jean-Paul Sartre, the father of, or one of the main contributors of existentialism, had a poorly managed and unresolved mescaline session in spring of 1935, which left him with acute feelings of anxiety and depression. And his philosophy of existentialism can in many ways be seen as an expression of BPM2. The underlying feelings of loneliness, inferiority, and guilt, fear of death and insanity, the horror of being trapped and engulfed, and a sense of absurdity of life. His major transit was the Saturn Return. So he has a natal Moon Saturn. His famous quote is, "Hell is other people." That's very much Moon Saturn. And here, our prototype of the other is this sort of contracting, punishing, squeezing force, and that became a very powerful influence in his life and in 20th century philosophy, actually. But we know that people with strong Moon Saturns can face this material and move it beyond it to the numinous transpersonal realms. Example of Mercury Saturn. In a replay of the fetus experience being compressed within the contracting uterine walls, Mercury's vision and perspective can be constricted by Saturn, leading to pessimism and negative thinking. But the positive side is a sober, organized, and practical mental approach. Now, in my book, I have, here's the Moon Neptune chapter. I don't know if you can see that. I talk about in an individual chart and transits, and then in relationship charts for each one of these, in the general themes in a relationship, and then one or two paragraphs on Moon Neptune in composite charts, and then one or two paragraphs of Moon Neptune, for example, in synastry charts. So I go through all of these and talk about them in composite and synastry. I won't have time to share many or almost no examples will I be able to share of those relationship comparisons, but it's an important part of the book. I just wanted most of the comedy in the first section. So Venus Saturn, a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. And this isn't the beginning of the section. It's just the section I pulled up. You may believe, for example, that true love can overcome major differences in age, background, education, favorite shows, etc. It may or may not. Once the falling in love stage ends, what we are sometimes left with is just an empty, fizzed out can of Dream Whip. Sorry, sputter. We love this skit from Mad TV. It has the guy that played Walt Whitman in Breaking Bad in it, and what was the woman's name? Mo Collins, and she says sorry. So that always reminds me of that. Check that one out. When the last hors d'oeuvre have all been eaten, couples enter what is called the stirring the oatmeal phase of a relationship. If you can ground your love in a basic lifestyle compatibility, you will gain a steady anchor around which to weather the lean as well as the abundant times. It is also important not to overdo things on the other side by substituting material gain for genuine affection. The vow, I will, is not supposed to read, I want your will. Don't settle for lumpy oatmeal just because there is some sugar on the table. This is another incredible painting by Oksana Zelisko. She actually lives in Edmonton. I just found her online, born with Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and this is called Demeter. And this masterful classic painting conveys the loss and sadness of Demeter, Venus, Saturn, in the midst of the Earth's autumnal bounty, Venus, Jupiter. Her sadness is accepted and balanced, Jupiter, Saturn, by a mature awareness of the inevitable reunion with Persephone after the period of loss and winter. There's just so much in her face. Really love this. And here's a joke. Darling, did you see that amazing new soul rectification program? Yes, I did. As it turns out, I may not be from the Pleiades after all. Oh no, Bob. We need to talk. Relationship complications in the astrology of the future. So this is a little kind of a new age joke. Hey, a little section from Mars Saturn. Start me up slowly. When it comes to tender human relations, few enjoy being treated like a grindstone. So instead of working over your mate like some kind of pink widget on a flesh assembly line, shift gears into emotional tenderness mode or find some real rocks to unload. At best, lovemaking will have its routine moments. You may feel deliberate motives for having sex, such as, it's good exercise. There, my heart rate has been in the aerobic zone for 20 minutes. Thanks. Now I gotta go weigh myself. To truly release your passion, you must feel a basic level of trust and sensitivity with your partner. And then from this connected place, engage slowly and deliberately. Any sudden plunging or hammering may meet with an instant shutdown. You are like a steam locomotive, picking up your passenger, giving clear signals while rolling down that track, and hopefully not tooting your horn unnecessarily. Train rides do not appeal to everyone, but if you cultivate a little gentleness and patience, there will be plenty of beautiful scenery along the way. Sex with you may not have the flash and glamour of flying or the impromptu convenience of driving, but it will provide a decent workout, let off some steam, and hopefully get you to point O and beyond. So here's Mars in BPM2 stage of birth. So these are like visual aids for astrologers to help us talk to our clients and to show kind of some of the emotions that might be related to, you know, Saturn square Mars transit or Mars square Saturn. Here the cervix is so closed that there's no easy apparent outlet for our energies. We may feel stuck, frustrated, and blocked. Saturn presses in, yet also focuses Mars energy in a firm tempering of the assertive and aggressive impulses. On the positive side, we can apply ourselves in steady and sustained ways during these periods, working long and hard to accomplish important goals and projects. There was another part from Mars Saturn I forgot to include. It's something like, after some huffing and puffing like this, you can stop and say, well, I guess we've had sex. So this is Jupiter and the no exit stage of birth. This is by Olena Preventure, another one of our colleagues in the, I think she's in the holotropic breathwork training, but I'm not sure. I know she's a student at CIIS in San Francisco. Some of you may know her. So Saturnian mortality can help us to reevaluate our priorities in life, to pursue quality connections and satisfying experiences with the people and nature around us, rather than striving blindly for compensations of inordinate wealth and position. And this is something that's happening right now with all the social distancing, right? It's a good time to look at, you know, okay, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? This is a timeout. It's a fallow time. Nature is doing its own thing, catching, you know, healing a little bit while the humans are pressed down, and we can sort of maybe get a little more in harmony with nature and our own inner nature. So the perinatal matrices become quite evident when you're looking at two of these outer planets. So this would be a connection of BPM1 and BPM2 of Neptune and Saturn. So Saturn-Neptune transits or transits to a Saturn-Neptune aspect could bring up some of these feelings. The interplay of these experiences of unity and states of separation can be very poignant. And we can feel our sense of peace, security, and connection being interrupted or diminished. However, so that would be when Saturn predominates. But by facing our suffering honestly over time, that's the positive side of Saturn, we can work to gradually regain and sweeten the lost cosmic womb. We may then experience Saturn as a positive influence, helping us to be more humble, grounded, and disciplined in our spiritual practice. And these are drawings by Stan Groff. And Mary from the famous church in Guadalupe. This is from 1531. The goddess Mary compassionately feels the suffering of all beings, Saturn, while also offering transcendent comfort, Neptune. She's a bridge. She's in touch with the divine, and yet her heart feels the suffering of all beings. So she's spanning that gulf between the Neptunian unity and the Saturnian state of separation. Powerful visions of Mary and other goddesses occur frequently in sessions of psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy. And they seem to be relatively independent of people's beliefs or culture of origin. It's something like a laboratory proof of Jung's idea of the collective unconscious. Oops. Okay, so now the dynamic stage of birth, the cervix is now open, the baby is being forced through the narrow birth canal by powerful uterine contractions. There are arousal of very powerful aggressive energies. There can be erotic feelings, confrontation with demonic archetypes, scatological feelings, so nausea and projectile vomiting would be very common in sessions, dominated by BPM3, and usually that would be during strong Pluto transits. Now, when people are in touch with and being influenced by BPM3, they may experience various problematic energies and emotions tied in with their sexuality. Groff discovered that our first sexual experience happens in the birth canal. And his theory is that it's because of the suffocation in birth labor creates a kind of enforced sexual arousal. And the fact that our first sexual experience happens in the context of aggressive reaction of the fetus to the life-threatening pressure, the sense of danger, the biological materials or even demonic archetypes provide a very logical clinical basis for various sexual variations and deviations. Fear is activated when in people whenever they become sexually aroused, if these BPM3 memories are close to the surface. So whenever because it was part of their first sexual experience, the sense of danger, life-threatening event of the birth process, when they become sexually aroused, fear can become activated. They might also experience aggression. They're influenced by the memories of their aggressive reaction to the suffocating pressures during delivery. We may also identify with the powerful dominating forces of the contracting uterus. That's the basis of judging and punishing feelings in human beings, Groff found. And so feelings of fear or aggression are two of the major problems in sexual dysfunction. And Groff found that, for example, the old-fashioned terms for the problems of frigidity and, say, impotence are not caused by a lack of energy, but by too much perinatal energy in the person's psyche. He worked with people that were completely shut down sexually, and as they unpacked their perinatal memories, they would get to places where they had very powerful sexual eruptions in their sessions and in the period after that particular session. And so it's because we automatically shut down our sexuality when these perinatal memories get activated, when we become sexually aroused. So for some people, their sex life could be a way to work through some of this, like sadomasochistic feelings or role playing. They can kind of work through some of it if their partner is understanding and so on. But if the feelings of fear or aggression are too intense, then they would need to do systematic uncovering work, outside of the bedroom to decrease the amount of perinatal material in their psyche, so then they can again feel comfortable with that level of intensity in their sex life. So Sun square Pluto, Freud believed that he was very interested in the force of sexuality in human development, and he saw the pervading signs of sexual symbolism in many areas of life. However, when asked about his own cigars, Freud responded famously, "Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar." Many decades later, Stan Grof, born with Sun conjunct Pluto, Freud with Sun square Pluto, discovered that some of the most powerful and problematic sexual feelings in the human psyche derive from an even earlier stage of development. As we just talked about, the sexual arousal caused by suffocation during birth labor. This quality of openly shining light, sun, on the sexual depths of the psyche, like Freud and Grof did, can be seen in primal Dionysian figures such as Mick Jagger, born with Sun conjunct Pluto, Madonna, Sun conjunct Pluto also, and Jack Nicholson, this sort of devilish side, Sun square Pluto. I'm teaching a 10-month online course in archetypal and holotropic astrology. Most of you probably know it. Some of you are already enrolled. And I'll be showing many slideshows with people from different directors and clips from movies, clips from songs. We're actually going to be playing them, and great art and philosophical ideas and themes from literature that illustrate all of these different archetypal energies. And I want to say, if you're watching this later, if you're not watching this live, it'd be really great if you wanted to just write down where you're from, like where are you living right now, just to get a sense of where, who is seeing this. So this is from Moon Pluto. This is my colleague Kathleen Silver, Sacrifice of the Corn Goddess. One of the last ones I added in, very beautiful, from a holotropic breathwork session which embodied elements of her natal Moon square Pluto aspect. She was facing the sense of being overwhelmed as well as the peace that comes from surrender. A sacrificial victim in a ritual celebration of the corn goddess is buried in corn. She cannot move. She is overwhelmed, and yet her spirit is healed and released by the bluebird and the rainbow. Pluto corresponds to the theme of death and rebirth, while the moon to the moon and stars, the resting womb of the earth, and the seeds of corn. Elements of the sun's vital light, healing warmth, and the rainbow reflect the world transit of Sun opposition Uranus when she painted this, and her personal transit of Jupiter square her natal sun. Looking at art and then the transits of the artist is one of the great joys in archetypal astrology. I love it so much. So here's an example of Mercury, Pluto. During the birth process, its psyche is bombarded with a flood of erotic, destructive, demonic, scatological, and pyrocathartic imagery. This is acknowledged in the Vedic tradition, which speaks of the 5,000 image which the fetus encounters during birth. This solution is to face these obsessive patterns of thought in responsible holotropic or psychedelic states. Okay, so this is our colleague Heike Daniel, holotropic breathwork session, Mars trine natal Pluto. What waves of wild and fierce feelings, and I'm really glad I got to publish these in color this time. The full expression of aggressive feelings in holotropic states consumes them from the psyche and decreases their effects in our everyday lives. So a lot of my book is an encouragement to people to do the inner work and specific ways that aggression might show up in their relationships and the ways they might be projecting on their partner and how to deal with those specific ways to process Mars Uranus versus Mars Saturn, Mars Pluto, and so on. So no one in the audience will disagree that anger can be a problem in relationships, and Groff was able to show where a lot of this malignant anger and aggression comes from in the human psyche and how to process it. And Jupiter in the death rebirth struggle, Olena Provencher. We may feel powerful evolutionary forces pressing on us to grow, evolve, and reach higher levels of integration, Jupiter, with the world around us. And I forgot to mention the Jupiter-Pluto component of the transits. There's a close conjunction right now for another 9 months. And, oh, I did mention this, Jupiter amplifies the Plutonic sense of the apocalyptic side of Pluto, but also the potential for evolutionary breakthroughs and progress. The plow is dropped deep into the ground right now, and yet it's not like everything's stopping. There is an evolutionary momentum here. We can see that in these civil rights protests right now, and it's going to till a lot of soil and the potential for a lot of evolutionary change on a deep level. Here's Rick Carnes, early 90s, around the period when he published The Passion of the Western Mind. I was at a conference in San Francisco in 97 during the great Jupiter-Uranus-Neptune triple conjunction in February 97. It was my only one of 2 astrology conferences I've ever been to. And he said their patriarchy is the 5,000-year birth canal of the great mother goddess. This awareness of a benevolent meta trajectory in history. And while he was speaking those words in his talk, plenary session, he projected this image up on the screen. I tracked this down. Karen Motan was very generous in sharing it for the book, and he projected this on the screen. And to many, this painting evokes the birth of a new humanity, and there were audible, impressed gasps in the audience when Rick played this, and it really felt like an archetypal moment. That Jupiter-Uranus-Neptune triple conjunction, that was when the idealization of Princess Diana happened. You know, it was the August 96, the kind of like the queen, you know, Elton John changed the lyrics to that Marilyn Monroe song and wrote about Princess Diana. And then, you know, this experience of this conference and Rick's talk. And then I met Caroline Casey, was also one of the plenary speakers at the same conference, and she just blew me away. I felt like I was watching the paradigm shift happen. When she got on stage, that to me was the moment, you know. Wow, what an incredible time. And if you haven't discovered her writing, I think she's probably the most gifted of all writers in the astrological world. Rick is, in the academic way, he's absolutely brilliant stylist, and his research is unparalleled in its scope. But for sheer vividness of style and fun and playfulness, her one book, Making the Gods Work for You, is just such a masterpiece. People can, you know, read these as they you know, look back over the talk. Her transits were, she was born with Uranus, Pluto trine Jupiter, and Moon, Neptune opposition Jupiter, very similar to what Tarnas has natally as well. And she painted this during the Uranus-Neptune conjunction of 96-97. This is our colleague from the breathwork community, Alejandra Sigliano-Nessi, and you probably know her, Norma, I would imagine. I think she lives in maybe Buenos Aires. And her transits were Sun trine her natal Jupiter, and a world transit of Jupiter conjunct Neptune, tree of life. To share this little bit from Moon Venus, your archetypal symbols include milk and honey, mother and child, Adonis, and Tinkerbell. In its highest expression, you may feel brotherly or sisterly feelings for all of humanity. Moon Venus has a special resonance with the myth of Demeter and Persephone, who are the cover of this book. I'm sorry I didn't explain it. This is Persephone coming out of the underworld into the arms of her mother Demeter, and Hermes is a guide in this process. This story was one of the most widely celebrated branches of Greco-Roman religion for over 2,000 years. It was formed the basis of the Eleusinian mysteries near Athens, which used ergot, a naturally occurring form of LSD. And it was essentially about the mother and daughter. Okay, I'm gonna skip that one. Here's a cartoon I wanted to share, Mercury Jupiter, the sophisticated intellectualism of Mercury. Dora, I love you. In the Beauvoirian, Kierkegaardian, or Schopenhauerian senses, please elaborate and take your time. And then the final BPM, BPM 4, the crowning and rebirth. People often identify with reborn deities such as Persephone or Inanna or Christ, Osiris, Dionysus, and then reunion with the divine in the form of the great mother goddess or with God. And this is Isis, who was worshipped for 3 millennia in Egypt and for many centuries throughout the Greco-Roman world. There were branches of worship of Isis in every part of the Roman world, actually. And this is Ocean, African goddess of the divine feminine, love, beauty, and fertility, art by Rachel Santel. And this is from a LSD session by Christina Groff, an experience of psycho-spiritual rebirth. This is a real classic one in the breathwork community, been seen for many, many decades. People influenced by BPM-4 will exhibit a spontaneous and passionate approach to their sexuality as lovemaking becomes an open channel for feelings of freedom and transcendence. They will tend to experience their sexuality through the stencil of BPM-4, the explosive liberation, dramatic release of tension, and relaxed satisfaction of the completed birth. They may also be open to new dimensions of experience, perceiving their lovemaking as an interesting, exciting, or even miraculous portal into spiritual states of being. During intimate relations, people will experience a buildup of genital tension, culminating in a powerful orgasm, followed by feelings of peace, contentment, and well-being. They can deeply surrender to and enjoy their own experience, while also being sensitive to the feelings of their partner. So Groff, was helping people to heal themselves in these systematic sessions. And I mean, they often had some of them had very serious problems, including sexual problems. And he wasn't, he wasn't a sex therapist, but a byproduct of their spiritual rebirth experiences was dramatic sexual healing, as these perinatal energies were cleaned out of their body and their musculature and the cells of their body. Powerful aggression, powerful waves of aggression and fear and choking and nausea and so on. So here's just a sample. This is the very beginning of Venus-Uranus. Fun-loving Venus and the cosmic convertible with exciting rebel Uranus give you the style and sparkle of a flashing prism in the sunshine and some really wild hair. With the bubbly effort, Carmen actually has it. Moon Venus-Uranus triple conjunction. With the bubbly effervescence of organic champagne, you are the vivacious life of the party, the spark and catalyst reminding others of the fun possibilities in every situation. You have a magically awakening effect on the world around you. Actually, two of the people in this that I can see that I mentioned before, I know you both have it too. You may also have the kind of striking appeal that turns people's heads when you walk into a room. Highlighted in flashy apparel as you disport and strut down the boulevard of life, you might be a problem for certain distracted drivers. You are likely to enjoy many flashes of aesthetic rapture and epiphany over the course of your lifetime, immersed in a higher divine harmony as you perceive the beauty in nature, art, music, and humanity, like being plugged into a cosmic electric current. Your aesthetic gifts can range from a love of bright, vivid colors and eccentric clothing to original creative expression. At times, you may experience lovemaking as an exhilarating, giddy rush of cosmic energies as you break through the inertia of your everyday holding patterns and connect with love reborn. Rose-cheeked with divine pleasure and abandon, you are quite simply the sugar and spice in the world's sensory buffet, a heavenly dish which even the gods and goddesses envy from on high. Sugar and spice, sugar is connected with Venus, right? Sweetness, and spice is Uranus, the spicy side of life. These archetypes may also bring occasional curveballs into your love as you or your mate become attracted, often briefly, to a third person outside of the relationship. Venus-Uranus can manifest as the classic romantic triangle. Well, Sally, I'm now in a triangle situation. How about you? Triangle? I remember the calm and stable days of my amorous triangles as if they were a month of Mondays in a snowed-in mountain convent. Wow. So what are you into now? Quadrangles? No, pententangles. So I say here, the lure of an affair may sometimes feel rightly or wrongly like a life-making offer that must be taken. However, what you might really be craving is the state of rebirth, which the new person seems to represent. If you feel certain that you're going to have an affair, maybe consider embracing polyamory, a more open and ethical and less disruptive way of integrating a new lover into your life. In general, your yearnings for stimulation and excitement may take precedence over your needs for security and stability as you rush into shiny new situations which offer little or no lasting substance. So this is so that was just the shadow side, right? There's a positive and shadow to everything. And then I talk about how to kind of work through that. So this is one of Groff's paintings, and he had Uranus-Pluto square natal Venus when he had this session. This was his third last perinatal session, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was. And Venus Uranus adds the element of vivid color. Peacock feathers are a very common vision in the sessions of people as they reach BPM-4 rebirth, and especially during Venus Uranus transits or transits to a natal Venus Uranus. You good for 10 more minutes? Okay. So here's some Mars Uranus. You're on fire. With Uranus needs for excitement awakening Mars dynamic energies, you become an electric fireball of adventure and enthusiasm. You are an intrepid high flyer, a spark and catalyst in the world's social powder keg, your passion lighting up incendiary bursts of sky-splitting fireworks. You wear your spirit and vitality like badges of freedom, waging fierce revolution against the emotional inertias in yourself and your partner. Sex for you is an ongoing channel for rebirth, a thrilling, speeding bullet against the intolerable villainy of the tedious life. Mars Uranus corresponds to the exciting buildup and release of orgasm itself, the outlaw rush of wild energy surging up and out of your being. And I realized that when I heard a talk by my friend Dean Juhan, who wrote Job's Body, who lived at Esalen many years ago when I was there. And he gave a talk on the physiology of the rush. And he had I think he had Mars square Uranus natally. And I remember Rick talking about that. So thank you, Dean. So Jupiter Uranus, this venture, grand replay of the miracle of birth, Jupiter Uranus transits, which we are in one right now, world transit, a square, often coincide with exciting breakthroughs, expansion of horizons, and unexpected resolution of problems. The shadow of these archetypes is a kind of golden touch mania, as people develop a feeling that they are lucky or chosen beyond measure. Donald Trump was born with Sun Uranus trine Jupiter, and he's an example of the really negative side of Jupiter Uranus, feeling that he has no boundaries. He can do whatever he wants and get away with it. And he's really gotten away with quite a bit so far, but hopefully not too much longer. So these are natural and legitimate feelings for an ecstatic newborn. However, in order to reach the more peaceful and integrated elements of rebirth and BPM-4, we might need to face any material in our psyches remaining from the death rebirth struggle. I mean, if he really did feel like he was a free man, then he would feel calm and satisfied. He wouldn't have so much to prove, right? So he's got this is, you know, my psychological theory, you know, all this driving birth energy inside of him. And he feels inside, like most of us that have that, horrible about himself in that situation. But he also has the memory of this birth and this sort of golden boy thing going on. And, you know, he's really run with that in a negative way. Someone who has it in a much more likable form is William Shatner, Sun Uranus square Jupiter, going where no man has gone before. That was the wording of the original Star Trek. He also had that golden boy vibe of kind of swashbuckling, you know, do his own thing, but, you know, and a gift for comedy. And Trump really should have stayed a comedian. Now he's, you know, responsible, some would say, for the deaths of, you know, tens of thousands, unnecessary deaths. So almost done here. This is from Neptune Pluto. This is a section. In your romantic and amorous life, we could say Neptune manifests through the mystical and spiritual side of lovemaking, while Pluto, the intense biological and elemental energies. Pluto's biological drives, without the softening effect of Neptune's spiritual feelings, resemble a pointless, sweaty struggle, as you are propelled simply by animal instincts. On the other hand, Neptune's mystical yearnings, without Pluto's biological vitality, is like a virgin alone in a church forever. It is important to integrate these two essential impulses in your being, the passionate and the spiritual, the elemental and the pristine, the second coming and the second coming. I don't know if you got my joke there, but I was a little conservative on my spelling so it wouldn't gross people out. In holotropic states, you can experience even the most dark and shadowy aspects of human nature. Pluto are ultimately emanations of divinity, Neptune, and necessary elements in the drama of material incarnation. the higher and the lower. We cannot have one without the other. And the challenge is to integrate them both, nature and spirit, the ape and the angel within us, in the most constructive and life-supporting ways. Honor thy inner monkey, just not to excess. And then some examples of synastry, and all people can listen to the recording and you know, read that if they want. So I won't read that.
You know, these, just with that configuration of Uranus, Pluto, and Jupiter together, and the significance of the three in all the ways that you described at the beginning of the presentation, you know, I'm just wondering if there's a, I'm just seeking a synthesis place.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, just sort of concise, because,
That doesn't.
I mean, I would love to hear all you want to say,
okay,
but
sure.
I'm really
Yeah.
just asking for something concise.
Okay, I need to look at this in order to do that. I would repeat part of what I said. It is essentially a death rebirth struggle of the collective psyche. And you know, we've been in it for a long time. I mean, for centuries, maybe for 5,000 years. But since World War I, it's intensified because our technology is getting more and more dangerous and destructive. Now we've got nuclear weapons and now climate change, two huge threats. You know, this virus in its present form is not a threat to the species, though it's certainly a threat to many individuals. So it's a death rebirth struggle, and Jupiter amplifies that, makes it bigger. It's a sense of a titanic struggle. But the presence of Uranus squaring all three of these archetypes means it tilts it toward the rebirth side, like the cosmic midwife of Uranus is pulling us through to the other side. Groff sometimes uses this metaphor of the birth of a new humanity. There are parts of all of us which are healthy and parts that are sort of still stuck in our wounds. And we can see that in society as well. There are things that are part of the solution, like electric cars, like renewable forms of energy, like you know, working from home. And there are parts that are still part of the problem, like political politicizing mask wearing. The idiotic thing that could be done during a pandemic, or taking away funding for, you know, medical care and stuff like that. So I just think it's one of those do or die moments, you know, where we must evolve. And this is a real Saturn Uranus kind of cartoon. And then I just wanted to end with that slide. And then this is my this is the link to my online course page, and it'd be an honor to have any of you be part of that. Thank you, Dulcie. Thank you, Tatiana. Really appreciated this opportunity.